Hello, welcome to this week's Legislative Update. I'm Jim Baumgart, your host. Thank you very much for joining us. And by us, I mean we have with us Ellen Schleicher, who's the Sheboygan County Register of Deeds, and that is a very important job. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's also work.
Yes, it
I've been
is.
in that office. There's just books and stuff that goes back into the mid-1800s that every record in there is your responsibility.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think some of the people watching probably should maybe understand that you're an elected position. That's the way their forefathers wanted to do it, because that's a good check and balance, because when a treasurer or a sheriff or a register of deeds is elected, they are really obligated only to the people that elected them, and while they have to be respectful of the county that houses them, but you are really a servant to the people.
That's correct. I am. They are my bosses.
And every time they come in, I think you're rushing around to take care of them. Before we get into discussing the importance of some of the duties of the Register of Deeds, you have another life. You have husbands and a farm, and why don't you give the viewers a little background? You've done things before you became a Register of Deeds person.
Right. Well, my husband and I will be married 38 years on November 24th, so a week and a half away. We have 4 children and 2 grandchildren.
Wow.
So
And you
busy.
live on a little farm, and your husband works with your son on a
Hog operation.
hog operation. Is that a big one or a little one? Or?
It's not huge, but actually they breed for show hogs.
Okay.
And we also sell market
Okay.
to folks who want to have homegrown raised pigs.
Yeah, like a pork chop.
Yep.
Anyway, we all have secondary lives and husbands and wives and besides the job. That's an important job, dealing with the Register of Deeds. But you do more than Register of Deeds, but we'd like to get into. You have a property fraud alert. That's a new responsibility that's put on the Register of Deeds office?
It's not really a new responsibility. We offered that many years ago, and at that time, or a couple of years ago, because of budget constraints, we had to discontinue that. But our software company now is allowing us to get back into that program at no cost. So pretty much what it is if someone is trying to do something fraudulent with your property, many larger cities, they're having issues where people are recording deeds.
In Milwaukee, it's a good example
Milwaukee,
of that.
right. And what this property fraud alert does is if anything is done with your property, with your, then you are notified. And it actually is, it's run through our office, but our software company is who deals with it. So you sign up with them at www.fiddler.com and look for the property alert. You can just pick your county, put your name and information in. You can get either notified email or a phone call. And if anything is done, and that means even if it's legitimate, like if you pay off your mortgage or you take out a loan, anything that is tied to that property, you will get an alert on. And
which is wonderful. You know what's going on, and you can react to anything that's unusual and to make any corrections that need to be, especially if you're going to sell the property and you haven't looked at that information for a while. That might be helpful.
Right. I mean, and it is a good. I'm glad we can bring it back to the people, and it's at no cost to us
Well,
or the
we
or
like
the
no
property
cost.
owner.
We like no cost.
Yeah, we do. You don't get very much free
No,
anymore.
and anytime you talk about raising, the taxes and prices of cars and other things go up, but it's a tough thing to do. And even when the car prices go up 1,000, nobody wants to buy a car sometimes.
Correct.
Birth certificates, you take care of that.
birth certificates,
Marriage
marriage certificates, death certificates, and as of
That's sort of a final thing, though, isn't it?
it is kind of, well, it's a circle of life, I
Yes,
guess.
sure.
And as of January 2017, we also now can issue divorce certificates.
I mean, if somebody's going to get divorced, they can come and get one?
If
Or-
they are divorced.
Oh, I see. No, I knew the answer
Right,
already.
yeah.
But
They can,
so I suppose you have to sometimes prove that if you were married at one time and now divorced, that if you're going to buy a house or a car or something, sometimes you have to prove that you are independent, I suppose.
it is, I think more for when they want to get remarried,
Oh, I see.
then they have to show that they are divorced.
Okay.
They have to show that paperwork.
Bigamy is not allowed in Wisconsin,
Right,
apparently.
yeah, well, I think federal,
Yeah,
that's-
no, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But that's good for somebody to know. One of the things that you deal with is also veterans that are leave service. They can record their veteran DD
214s.
214.
Their discharge papers are filed in our office. And I had talked, we worked together with the Veteran Services as far as folks getting their information when they need it. I have been told by the Veteran Service that Wisconsin is the only state, one of the only states that the DD 214s are confidential. So they're not open to the public. And so they're protected because they have a lot of information on them, personal information. So that is a good thing that they're
Sure.
confidential. And we also issue a free birth certificate or for the veteran for when they retire for whatever reason. That is by state statutes. We are allowed to do that.
So if somebody comes in and they're a veteran and they're about to retire, they can get a free one.
Yes, so we usually tell them to go through Veteran Services, and then Veteran Services will request it. And part of that is because there's a lot of programs that they may be eligible for. So like I said, we work with Veteran Services Office in the county, and that's the best way to go.
Well, every county has to have a veteran service officer, either a full-time or part-time. Some counties are very small population-wise, and I think they have half-time people, but they do have in Wisconsin, which is one of the great things about the state. They make sure that every county has a person that if there are servicemen and women that are having problems, they can get that information from them. And of course, the different county offices like yours work in tandem with everybody.
Correct, yeah.
Now, the types of other things that you do is what? You have a staff of how many?
6.
All right. And as I recall, from about 1848 until 2007-8, the records weren't as solid, because back in the early days, people would live on a farm and somebody would pass away or a child would die, and during birth they would just go back by their house and have their own little cemetery. So there were some gaps in the information, but now it's pretty much required that that all of this is reported. How does that work, that you get all of these records? Some of those are old.
Right, and it's actually 1848 to 1907
Okay.
is where they're sporadic,
Yeah.
because
Because they're still...
it was 1907 when there were state statutes that said, they had to record births, deaths, and marriages in a county office or city at that time, because City of Sheboygan, did the City of Sheboygan just like City of Milwaukee does. But when they got rid of their health department, all those records came to our office. So now they're all just located in our office.
You're doing some updating though, aren't you?
We are. We have
Those are old books. I've seen
They
them.
are
They're
old
huge.
books, and we have old records that we were so brittle, marriage, birth, and death records, that we did scan them, get them scanned in and digitized, and we're working on, they're all in the computer, so, you know, we can access those records without having to damage,
So
you
you
know, the
don't have to go
paper.
in and turn pages anymore, because you're right, some of that paper they used was, you know, probably good paper, but not paper that was intended to last 200 or 300 years.
Correct.
Of course, I'm not sure if digitals are made to last that long.
Well, we hope,
Yeah.
you know, and that's part of my responsibility is to ensure that if what records we do now have scanned in and in the computer, that when programs change as technology advances, we have to ensure that we move that into the new technology. Because we did run into some glitches with that, but you know, we were able to make sure that we had our records, and they'll always be in paper form, but the damage is now with people paging through the books,
Yeah.
you know.
With genealogy and other things, right?
Yes.
Well, one of the things that some people look at and say, well, we got Register of Deeds, we got sheriffs, why don't we appoint those people? Well, our forefathers, wisely, I think, realized that if all of these offices, which you really are directed by the state, fall under the county, then the Register of Deeds and the clerk and all of those are beholden to the power of only the county. The elected person, like you are, you're obligated to be responsible to the county and the committee that oversee you, but you're also independent by the elected person. You don't have to jump to a tune necessarily if somebody is going to try to do something that maybe looks wrong.
Right.
And that happens.
It does happen, and I'm happy that I can look out for my constituents, for the voters. That they really are my concern. My loyalty is to them, and to try and do the best for their interests, not just one person.
Right.
I have no problem working with my peers, helping them out, but I don't have to, if I don't feel that what they want to do is right for my purposes or my office, I have the right to say no.
Well, and that's the way it should be, because if we don't have checks and balances, then people that are voters need to understand that just because you can put everybody in one pot doesn't make necessarily the pot better.
Correct.
And so we have to protect our democracy by having checks and balances and having independent sheriffs and treasurers and Register of Deeds and others is a blessing rather than a curse. And chances are you're doing things that are economically very good for the county anyway.
Right.
But we do have to close down, and I have to sort of end it. I want to thank Ellen Schleicher, Register of Deeds, for coming in and talking about the complex things that takes place in her office. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.